Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I have a fantastic panel of authors for you to dive into with me. Without any further delay, let me introduce this week's episode. Before you spend 6 months writing a book, I want you to do something that has nothing to do with writing it. Talk to the people you think will read it. I know. This sounds like a waste of time maybe because you're the expert on the topic, but being an expert doesn't automatically mean you know which part of your expertise your ideal reader most needs in a book or even knows that they're looking for in a book. How do they describe the problem? Do they even know they have the problem you want to solve? Many do not. What have they already tried? What's worked? What hasn't? What are they looking for now? And is this something they care enough about to spend time reading a book about? Those conversations might confirm that you're exactly on the right track. Fantastic. They might also cause you to change the positioning or narrow the audience or rethink the book entirely. And I would much, much rather you discover that before you wrote 40,000 words. This is a big part of why I created the Author ROI Lab. It's designed for entrepreneurs who are considering writing a book and they want to test whether the idea makes sense before investing all that time, money, and effort. If you're considering a business book and want to make sure you're writing a book that it can actually support your business goals, you can learn about Author ROI Lab at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. Now, let's meet today's panelists. With me, I have Avish Parashar, who wrote Say Yes and to Change, How to Harness Change, Unlock Brilliance, and Transform Apathy into Excitement, a practical guide that uses improv principles to help people respond to change with more flexibility and turn resistance into forward motion. We also have with us today Luci McKean, who wrote Protocols for All, 50 Practical Structures to Ensure Engagement, Deepen Learning, and Improve Facilitation Skills, a hands-on resource for facilitators and educators who want stronger participation and more effective group learning. And Sophie Lechner is back. She was here last week. We left a little bit of a cliffhanger, so we brought her back. She's got an upcoming book, but she's also going to be talking about her existing book and workbook, Unlock Your Impact, the roadmap to magnetic client attraction for entrepreneurs who hate marketing, a guide for entrepreneurs who want to attract clients through relationships and a more natural approach to marketing. Please join me in welcoming Avish, Luci, and Sophie. Avish, I'm going to go to you with the first question, which is, who did you have in mind as you were writing this book? Who's the ideal reader that would be so glad they found you? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Well, my ideal reader for this book, it's I did the wrong thing. I did two, but the primary one is leaders, executives who are navigating change and their employees are sort of resisting or hesitant and they want more buy-in. So smoothing that road, but it's also written for the employee themselves on how they can embrace change and find opportunity in it instead of resisting it.
Was there a particular sector or industry that you are pulling stories from as you're writing this book? Like who would feel real resonance with it?
No, I've always been industry agnostic, which has been a strength and a weakness for 23 years. But the broad term I'd use is knowledge workers. It's people who work in an office and teams. It's less so like manufacturing or retail.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing in that more detail. Let's go over to you, Luci. Welcome back. I'd love to hear who you had in mind for your book.
Well, our primary audience is educators, but we really are reaching out to people who lead meetings wherever they are, whether they're in businesses or nonprofits or even government offices.
It's interesting because your background is obviously in education. When you released this book, because this is now a more commercially available book compared to your other guides and handbooks and resources that you have, I know you've created just a massive library in that way. Was there a surprise that you got a response from people who were outside that education lane?
I wouldn't say that it was a surprise. I think that we've always kind of had our fingers in a variety of pots and had a variety of audiences between my co-editor and I, Michelle Mattoon. She's done a lot of work with a lot of different kinds of organizations in addition to education, and so have I.
Awesome. All right. Love that. Sophie, welcome back. So Sophie jumped in last week because we had someone step out and last minute. So she came in and we talked in the green room before last week's show about how she had this upcoming book. So maybe clue us in to all the things you're doing, Sophie, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I've actually got two books in the wings that are coming out September and October if all goes well. One is a a short workbook to help my audience really focus in on their mission and vision and define that and bring that into their business as the foundation for everything. And the other book that I'm very excited about is it's a business novel, so a fable or parable. I'm choosing between the two words. Um, so it's the story of four entrepreneurs who I introduced in my initial book, Unlock Your Impact, just to represent the different levels of experience and challenges that entrepreneurs have. And so the idea came to me to bring them to life and show their challenges and how applying some of the principles that come from my book, would look like in real life.
I love this. We're going to dig in a little deeper into how you decided to move forward with that project. But first, let me come back to Avish. Avish, you and I got a chance to work together on your third book launch. But tell me a little bit about the evolution from book 1 to book 3. Because like book 1, none of us know. We don't even know what we don't
Yep.
know. Like we, but to go back to that and say yes again. Look at that. I'm switching up your talk there. So if you just keep saying yes in that way, tell me what that looks like as an author and a speaker and a business person. You know, why do you keep developing new books? Like, how do you keep motivating yourself to do that?
Well, you keep motivating because you keep getting better, and you realize it's sad, but you realize how bad the earlier books were. No, you realize how much better they could have been, right? So the first book was, if you're a speaker, you go to one NSA, National Speaker Association meeting, everyone starts telling you, you got to have a book, you got to have a book. So I wrote the first book. It's 16 principles. So it's essentially a series of articles. They're sort of related, but there's not much of a through line. Ride that book for a little while, then realize, oh, I'm talking about yes and now. I need to position myself better. So I wrote a short book called Just Say Yes And, with the goal of being, hey, people read this and then hire me. Honestly, that didn't really happen as much. And then I wrote it out for a while, and I realized I needed a book to build the next step of my business. So what I wanted was, number one, a really useful book, and one that I could position for after I speak. So the first two are like nice idea books. This one, I really wanted to be more practical. I wanted something when someone saw me speak, they say, ooh, I want that book so I can go do this myself now. So it's a little bit more strategic in how it fit into the book. So it's more useful. And honestly, like the first two books were written more for me. They were like marketing pieces. I need to have a book to sell. This one I really tried to write in terms of the audience. Like I wanted something that someone could take and really do something with.
When did this last book come out? How long ago?
The official launch was April of 2026, so a few months ago.
So just a few months ago. Have you seen already any ROI business wise?
Not yet in terms of the leads coming from the book, but the book has been a nice follow-up piece. So I spoke at a conference a month ago. The client bought 50 in advance, and then just like a couple days after, I was checking my KDP, my Amazon sales, and one day there was a spike, 118 books on one day, which normally I get like 0 to 2 a day. And I have no proof, but I'm like, I think someone came along and bought 100 for their department. And then I was never a big back of the room book sales guy. If I sold, 5 after a gig, it was all right. And I just spoke yesterday and I sold out. I had 20 of these books, which is all I had in inventory, plus my old ones. And someone came along and bought 10 that like for their team. And so I'm seeing the synthesis of my keynote and the book in a way I didn't really see before.
That's so interesting. I think there's some strategy we'll dig into. Luci, you had all this material already, but you decided to make it available in a different format. I'd love to hear your ideas and evolution for you and Michelle around creating something that was going to be available on Amazon and just like a different audience, or a much wider audience probably than you've had before, and whatever else you'd like to share.
Well, honestly, there have been other people have had books of protocols on Amazon, and it's like, they've got other people, and sometimes they were using some of our materials and not even having permission from us to do this and that sort of thing. And so we had been talking about, for a long time in the office, we called it the Everybody Book, because most of our work, most of the things that we do, we feel like we need to train people on how to do them so that they do them properly and effectively, and they don't have people go, oh gosh, that's that protocol woman again, we don't want to do that, that didn't work out so well. And so what we call now Protocols for All, I still like the Everybody Book, but what we call Protocols for All has been a really great way for us to reach those people who maybe didn't have the budget to do any trainings with us, or maybe didn't even know that we were available to do that. And I also want to tag on to what Avish was talking about. I'll be doing a keynote in late October, and they're buying 130 copies of the book in advance. Yay. And I hope to be able to, and I'll actually, in the keynote, and I'll do a breakout session, and I'm going to do a closing for them. They love me, apparently. And I'm actually using the materials that are in Protocols for All as I'm doing these things. And so it's going to be a really great opportunity to get us out in front of this audience and be able to really demonstrate what it is, walking the talk of the book.
These are both great examples of what's around the corner that someone writing a book can't see. Like,
yes,
they can imagine, taking a selfie with the book because they've seen a lot of people do that. But this other stuff happens kind of almost behind closed doors. Like, not many speakers are walking around talking about how they lined up, bulk orders for their book. And like it's just not something you have to like be in a community of speakers and authors to really learn that. But if you don't have that access, the fact that you've been selected to have so many prominent roles, Luci, also says probably that the book pre-sold them on your content, your expertise. I love that you're integrating content from the book, which is the structures and the protocols of how to run smart, thoughtful, engaging conversations would be part of how you're also doing your presentation and your work at the conference, but that they pre-purchased all those books just to give out. And Avish, now you're seeing it on the other end, which is you inspire people from the stage because you got all the years experience doing improv and doing speaking, and now they want to take it with them back to the office to share. And that's really different because you had an application in mind when writing that book. It's not, I also, through the National Speakers Association, over a decade ago, and my first book very much came from the mantra, you need a book, you need a book, you need a book, you need a book. Like, oh my God, it was so loud in my head. Like, you need a book, you need a book. And so it feels really hard to think about that first book sometimes and positioning it. I feel like, Sophie, your first book, you almost did the kind of book that traditionally would happen, which is you had a LinkedIn expertise. You were like, I'm going to write about the thing I know. And that's what we all do. But you fortunately had people intervene, and it was people you wanted to listen to because they were your clients, telling you why they actually hired you. And it wasn't really about one platform. And so you ended up writing Unlock Your Impact as a book one, which is a really great book. And I want to also say it's almost like it's like a second book for a lot of people, like the quality and the thoughtfulness of it and how it fits with your business. How did you sidestep I don't want to say like an error, but like there's definitely a stumbling block that I think a lot of writers for the first book come into around just wanting to produce a book on a topic they could answer questions about on a podcast. I don't know how else to say it kindly, but you didn't do the lowest common denominator option. Like, how did you do that?
Well, I started to write the book and I was 20,000 words into it.
That's not starting. That's like a lot of a book. Okay, good to know. 20,000 words. That's a lot. And then you were like, no.
Yeah, it's parked. I might reuse some of it, but
I hope so.
Yeah, yeah. It was all about how I teach my clients to use LinkedIn. But then the more I went, the more I could see that a lot of what I was saying was not just about LinkedIn. So that was one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is because this was so second nature to me and I knew, how to use LinkedIn so intimately, I was slipping into writing too much detail and it became too much of a mechanical book, like click here and do that. And I got bored. I got bored with it. And I was like, well, this is not a good sign. If I'm bored with it,
Oh
let
no.
my readers. So eventually I said, this is not a book about LinkedIn. And at the time, it was a very revolutionary idea for me to write the book, but it's not about LinkedIn because my identity was so attached to LinkedIn. It took me a long time, and I sometimes still struggle with that, to disassociate myself from being just a LinkedIn coach while still remaining a LinkedIn coach. So it's kind of like, but once I made the decision, then it became really um, much clearer for me to share the strategies that I wanted to share, because they actually were now not attached to LinkedIn anymore. So it was interesting.
That's really hard to do. Like, to be on a path and to have the realization that where you're headed no longer feels right. Like, you had all the information in the moment, like, to make the decision to get on that path. But then you learn new information, both your own gut around this is not interesting to me anymore, but the realization that you were more than just one platform. But then that's an identity. Like you said, there's like an identity piece to this, because there's a, like, you're very smart about your branding. So you had a strong brand association about LinkedIn. I will say, even as someone who's known you for many years, it's been hard for me to shift. Like, I had to stop just calling you like, oh, good, we have Sophie in the room, she's our LinkedIn expert. Like that was like a thing you would say. And now I'm like, oh, Sophie's here, she's really smart about helping authors and entrepreneurs who like hate marketing. Let's see what she has to say. Like, it's like a more comprehensive approach to what you can do. LinkedIn might be one possibility, but anyone listening who's already started working on a book and it's no longer like making them joyful, like, just take a page out of what Sophie's saying, check in with the people who actually hire you, see why, like, try to find what's the larger story here that would be interesting, and explore that, and don't be afraid of like rebranding. I've reinvented myself 3 or 4 times since 2019. I may be losing a little track of one of those reinventions, but like, yeah, I mean, I found something that really feels like it's going to stick, but everything is an evolution to get to this point. Avish, you have had, since I've known of you, like, you're very strongly associated with improv. In fact, I saw a podcast episode that had say yes and as part of the title, and I immediately thought of you, and the brief description didn't have your name, and I clicked on it and found out that it was you as the guest. So like, I love that, like, that's how well branded. I mean, it could have been anyone in the world, right? Like, it's not, it's an idea and a concept that's far and wide, but you really have claimed it. How did you hone in on this, and is it constraining you, or is it kind of opening you up to possibility to be so tightly described to a certain like improv, or certain, even say yes and, like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it sometimes a little bit of both? Like, how do you think about the brand and the identity related to what you've created?
Sure. So quickly, I'll answer the first part, which is how do I settle on that? And I started with just improv, and kind of like you, changed my brand and my tagline. And yes and at that point was just one piece of what I talked about, but it was always the one that people would talk to me about afterwards. So it took me a number of years to say, oh, hey, if this is the thing, people, that's when I wrote the second book, because I'm like, oh, this is the thing. But even then, I didn't change my full brand or keynote. It was still the third point in my keynote. And then finally, it was like 5 or 6 years later that I put everything under the yes and it's been very freeing. It's been both constraining and freeing, right? Because it's constraining because I kind of got to talk about this, but freeing because the association and people. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw another speaker and trainer, and I don't know if they read your book, but they were talking about yes and." And I'm like, I didn't invent this, and I'm very clear this is not my invention, but it is nice that way, that it becomes associated with you. So I think that's I don't know if you had a second part of that question.
Yeah,
but that's kind of how
great.
I got there.
Like, I think what's really interesting is that improv is a wider topic, right? There's a lot of possibilities of how to take that. The fact that you then took improv into business So
Mhm.
it's already like a little bit different from how most people think of improv in like a comedy show and like something fun and like you're having some drinks and like you're like, oh, we're gonna bring improv into a corporate environment. And so that's already like a leap from what some people are thinking. And then to like get yourself branded down to a phrase that, like you said, you didn't invent this. I remember the first time I ever did say yes and. I was in a room with 120 or 150 people. We were not even we were like all sitting on the floor. It was all part of like a big conference thing, and they threw a ball around. They threw like a beach ball
Yep.
around, and we just kind of did the say yes and. Of course, you were like, yeah, of course, that's how you do it. It was a profound moment to my like 20-year-old self.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, boom, click. Like the idea of not like we did that before we brainstormed a big campaign. We basically did that in a room of 100 plus people and then broke into small groups of like 10, small being 10, like which is not
Mhm.
that small, and like went and developed like amazing next steps. But that was a warm up, and I just remember being like, remember that. Like so Luci and I bonded because I love facilitation, I love structure, I love learning about what you need to set up behind the scenes to make something work. And that was an example of like how to set the space so that we
Mhm.
were not just shutting each other down. So I love you're very tightly branded to this. And Luci, you're very tightly branded to the protocols concept, which when I met you, I didn't know that term, but I knew the concept. Does that make sense? Like I was living the concepts. I was writing a book about how to use Zoom effectively and all the facilitation and all the little meeting tips and tricks. Where does the term protocols, and for that matter, structures, which I think is another related thing, like where is that coming from? Is it like an academic thing? Is it educational? Like who's using that term prevalently, like in the moment?
I don't have a definitive answer for you, really. Protocols is a common term in education. It's very, after I worked here for several years, I then found out about liberating structures, which is similar to it. But yes, there are protocols in the medical world, there's protocols in government, there are protocols. And in fact, it was a really startling thing when we first published Protocols for All on Amazon, and I went to Amazon and typed in Protocols for All in the search bar. I got all of these medical supplements and all kinds of crazy, well, crazy in my mind, things that were completely unrelated, even though I typed in literally the title of our book. So
Lessons learned. Yes, that's
yeah,
true.
it's a word that my organization, that Michelle's and my organization is kind of stuck with because we are so heavily branded to this for more than 25 years. And so it kind of puts us in an interesting position, especially when we are talking to people who are facilitators not in education. They're like, proto what? What?
What's the name of the organization?
National School Reform Faculty, which is also, in my opinion, kind of tragically named. But we were named back when school reform didn't mean kind of what it means now. We're all about creating more equity of voice in meetings so that you don't have like one or two people talking all the time, and really being able to hear from everybody and kind of level the playing field in meetings so that you don't have so much clear power being exerted by a few people and other people being shut down.
I can see how that plays out in lots of settings and why it's needed in a more corporate space like where Avish is playing. Sophie, you are mostly, I think you're working more with like the solopreneur or the entrepreneur who maybe has a couple of some team members or something. How did you end up with that market and know that that's who you're writing to for your book? Because LinkedIn is being used widely by like everybody. So how did that become your slice of the market?
Well, I would say it's because I joined a big coaching program that you know about and started meeting a lot of entrepreneurs and who were like me, solopreneurs, one or two VAs or whatever, but that's it. And it was a completely different business. And then while I was in that program, the pandemic hit. And I had been using LinkedIn, I was going to say all my life. No, not all LinkedIn's life, when it first launched. And So during the pandemic, we all got stopped in our tracks, and a lot of people around me, those entrepreneurs, were saying, well, what am I going to do for business development? And I kept telling them, well, you can use LinkedIn, it's still there, no problem. And they were just looking at me like I had four heads. And so I started explaining and I started telling them, and, we all had a lot of time on our hands. So I did a lot of Zoom calls to help my fellow entrepreneurs. And that's kind of how it evolved. They asked me, they came back and said, can I have more? So then I developed an offer. And then eventually I dropped the other business that I was in the coaching program for and just went with this business because it was working. So,
this is where there's the unintended consequences of our life.
Yeah.
And how looking back, things can oh yeah, that all makes sense now. But in the living of it, you're feeling your way through. And again, an example. So clearly you have a history of working on a project, realizing it's not panning out exactly as planned, and accepting that there's something you can still learn from one thing to the other. You're not letting go of everything that you either wrote or in this case built. You're just building upon it, and it makes that foundation even stronger. I was in that community, and like you said, for me, it was I've never even since had the opportunity to work with so many different businesses at once. I interact with 150 businesses probably in the time that I was there. Wide range of topics and what they did and all that. And it was the education that was in that. It's in the learning of what people need, how they think, what they think they need, what you think they need, and how there's a difference. I think if anyone has an opportunity, this is where I know some people volunteer to work for I think it's called SCORE, but there's small business programs around the country. I think if you have a skill set, I've never done this, but I think if you have a skill set that would support a small business owner, volunteering for 6 months, a year, 2 years at a place like that can only enhance your business. You're not going to get paid, but you are going to get an education, and you will probably find a piece of the work that you do, like what you did, Sophie, is figure out, oh, there's something that's innately comfortable for me that other people need to learn step by step. I'm it's like me with networking. Oh, you just walk in a room, you just show up, and it's people have no idea what I'm talking about. That's really cool. And when it came to, I just want to do a quick thing about reviews here, because you and I worked together, and Avish worked together on this. And Luci, you have gotten more reviews since you and I started talking about this. Now I was looking, and I was like, oh, your review count went up. That's great. Because you have to kind of know that this is even a thing to do. And first-time authors have so much on their plate. I don't blame them for not having full focus on this part, particularly if it's not something anyone was educated about. So for Avish, this was book 3. So you had a different understanding over time. How did you approach this third book differently, Avish, compared to the other two? You already said that this one had a different kind of audience, strategy to the business, but you also made a decision. And I think you heard about it through David Newman. Is that right? Was that who you talked to about working with me?
Oh, no, that's a reverse. I connected. I sent Newman to you.
You sent Dave Newman to me? Well, thank you. He was fantastic to work with.
I just found you. I mean, we're connected through NSA, and then I think it was, I think your social media marketing was sort of, and then I read your book, and I realized I had been on the receiving end of authors who had worked with you. And I'm like, well, I want this for my book when it comes out. I'd participated in so many launches as a reviewer. I'm like, well, I need to do this, but it's too much work, so I'm going to hire Robbie.
Oh my God, that you just if we could just bottle that moment up, that's what everybody wants. Can we just spritz that about the room? That's more of that. You just said it. You're like, oh, I read the book. It made me realize what I need to do, and that I've seen other people successfully do it, and then it's a lot of work, so I'm going to hire you.
That's exactly
what happened. The product
happened.
Market fit in those 2 sentences take years to get to. Magic when it happens. And then, so how did you decide the reviews piece? Because it's different from what you did in your first 2 books. You currently have 50 global ratings and 49 written reviews. Phenomenal in a number of reasons. Dozens of reviews like that, hard to do. Clearly, a lot of work went into this. But the fact that 49 of the 50 people who left one of the 1 through 5 star ratings also wrote a review, that means it's a real effort to get reviews then. And did that effort also, I guess I'm going to ask you a specific question since I'm now just yammering. I want to know the outreach that I did on your behalf to get those reviews was from your own network. Did that lead to conversations that are leading to, are you getting new media opportunities, new revenue opportunities? Like, how did we wake up and engage the network that led to new conversations?
Yeah, it did. So number one, the podcast you mentioned that you saw me on, that came from a recommendation because it's one of the Google form questions when someone leaves a review. So that's how I got connected with Jody for that one. And then the gig I mentioned from a few weeks ago where they bought the books and that was a past client from 22. I reached out to them for the book launch and she's like, hey, why don't you speak for us again? And we talked, and so I did their opening keynote, and this was a huge conference, like 2,000 people. Already got one spin-off gig, which I'm doing in September from that, and have a number of conversations. So it did reactivate the network. But then a lot of it is me shifting my own mindset because I'm very much an ADD improv comedian. Once something's done, I move on. It was shifting my mindset saying, oh, well, I've started the first step. So what I've started doing is going back through the entire, at least the list of people who said they leave a review. And I'm just reaching out, not to sell, but to say, hey, I'm using this as an excuse to network. Let's set up a conversation. And so I've had like networking calls with probably 20 people so far, and I'm doing more. And none of those have led directly to work, but a lot of times people's like, oh yeah, I'll keep you in mind, or let me, right? It's the first step. It's thinking of this as a step in the process and not the end of the process.
It's the pipeline building, and it's so critical. Yeah. I love that you are doing that. I had a client, and I only found out that this was happening because I was her coach at the time for her business strategy. And so we had continuing meetings. And because of that, after her launch ended, she sent me an email like, okay, so for my homework this week, I'm going to, and it was all about like social media posts. And I was like, we just activated a list of like 200 people.
Yeah.
And this is an example of like things that I automatically think to do. And now I realize I have to spell out, right? Like I didn't give her here's how everyone like was engaged, and here's who you want to follow up with first and second and third and prioritize and make all these. And now I actually do a video walkthrough of the final launch team spreadsheet and like explain how to look at it and who to prioritize. And I give them a few like first steps because I think one of the missed opportunities after doing a really comprehensive launch is not doing the follow-up. So I love that you kind of have a plan to just keep reaching out. And that's where also you were part of the Kindle Flash Sale, which is how we're all here. And that's another way to continue, having a reason to reach out to people. And I love that, you were able to do that on the heels of a launch, like so soon after you were able to be part of the Kindle Flash Sale, just kept momentum going. Anything you want to add on that before I?
Well, just, I've been deciding I'm so tired of posting on social media and the algorithm's constantly changing. So I'm trying to do more networking. And I listened, I think it might have been the Speakers Association podcast, this person talking about networking. And she said, the first thing you do is take your entire list of contacts, list them out, and then kind of categorize them. And I'm like, oh, I already did that because of this launch process. So I'm like 2 steps ahead now. And it all, like you said, it all feeds together if you keep working it and not just, do it once and hope it magically leads to results.
Yeah, the process that you went through was built off of something I included in my second book, Small List, Big Results, Launch a Successful Offer, no matter the size of your email list. And I call the process Wake Up Your Network. And it has you going through your LinkedIn list, your phone contacts, your email contacts, whatever, like people you've texted in the past, whatever it is, and identify likely prospects, referral partners, and general supporters based on certain criteria. And once you have done that, then just like figuring out what the next step would look like. Sophie, you have opened up this like door to authorship that you have fully embraced. 2 books done, 2 on the way. I'd love to hear how you have also leveraged these books that you already have out into business conversations. Like, are you doing the follow-up networking, or are you creating new programs? Like what's sort of come from having a book?
Yeah, so I'm not doing as much follow-up as I probably could and should, and the way Avish is doing, but I'm having to start doing that now to build a launch team for the novel that's coming out. So I'm replunging into that. I have from the launch, I got I don't even remember how many, but like 20, 25 podcast interviews. So that was great. I got a few magazine articles out of it as well through contacts. And I find that it just makes it so much easier to, I don't know, to talk to people, to have people just recognize. It's also a confidence thing. Like my thing is out there, it's written, it's codified, it's explained, you know, and it provides a lot of basis for my content as well. So it's definitely, and of course from that I developed the workbook, and all of my work now is building pathways, on ramps into that work. And that's what the new novel is. That's what the new workbook is. It's not anything new. It's really building ways, pathways for people to come into the work.
Because you understand the work more deeply. The baseline has already been written, and now you're kind of building on the rest of the music notes, if I'm using that metaphor correctly.
Yes, although I would say it's almost like, you know, we were talking about the expertise that we have that we kind of take for granted. I put the book out there and there's a lot in it, and the feedback I'm getting and the understanding I'm gathering is that it's a lot. It's a big commitment to say, okay, it's more like a manual, if you will, let alone the workbook. So I need to build these smaller pieces for people to be able to get into it without making as big of a commitment. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting, different.
Yeah, meeting people where they are.
Mhm.
Like I'm now started to talk about the importance of having a piece of content that has no email opt-in, that
Mhm.
that somehow helps change people's perspectives about your work and gets them curious. And so I have the "How ready are you to launch" checklist, robbiesamuels.com/launch checklist, which one day maybe I'll get a better URL for. But people can use it. Like I'll be on a Zoom call and I'll have like 6 people on a call with me, and a minute later someone's ready to talk about their answer. Like 1 minute has gone by, and now we're starting to actually have a conversation about the gaps, what they thought they needed to know, what they do know. And it just, boom. And I'm going to bring it with me to an in-person conference that I'm sponsoring, and I have an exhibitor booth, and I'm going to have those aha moments happening live, and then that'll lead to another different conference. So it's like, how do you create a small enough bite of something that helps people like go, oh, wait, oh, and then their awareness is like shifted, and they now need to know more from you, and you're the one who taught them that. So clearly you're the expert they want to lean into.
Yeah.
Luci, I'm curious about your marketing plan for the book, since you now have widened globally the reach of like everybody. This is actually, it's funny you call it the everybody book, but like it's one of those examples where I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, like I kind of can't argue against the fact that everyone needs to have better structure in their conversations to create better outcomes and create everyone's inputs and all that. But like, how do you market? You can't. Like someone pointed out that like even Procter & Gamble doesn't market anything to everyone, which is a funny line. I wish I can credit who it was. So Luci, how are you marketing a book called Protocols for All when, all is a big market?
all is a very big market. And I don't have a good answer for that one either, actually. We are in a place at the moment where here at NSRF, we are beginning to offer a whole new array of trainings and thinking about our market within education a little differently than we have before. And of course, it's the beginning of the school year, and so that makes this crazy time for everybody anyway. Sure. So I don't have any good answers for marketing outside of education right now.
Well, you have.
I'd love to hear more. So I'm streaming this, and if people have great ideas, hit me on LinkedIn.
Well, definitely, as you mentioned earlier, and Sophie, I think you're going to second this when I say it, but then you have like an into the medical world because of the protocols piece. So you already know from your own research, but you did sign up for the Kindle flash sale. So what was your thought that led to signing up for something that was, broader audience of corporate and entrepreneurship, to be part of this, cross collaboration with dozens of authors?
Right. We always get a sales bump with the Kindle flash
And hit
sales.
number one every time, I think. Every
And
single
hit,
time.
I think last time maybe we just got to number 2.
Oh,
But I know.
I just assumed I
know.
missed number one, honestly.
Only number.
I
Well, that's
assumed that I just had missed it because I'm like, this, you're so consistent. But that's amazing sales results.
yeah, yeah, and it's been great. And so I love you actually corrected me, and that's fantastic. That the cross pollination with the other entrepreneurial authors in the Kindle flash sale has just been really remarkable and lovely. And I'm in more groups where we're talking about facilitation, and so I have a broader audience in that kind of context, and I can always expand upon that. But yeah, it's the Kindle flash sale has just been wonderful for us. Honestly, the first time we participated in one was literally like a couple of weeks after we launched on Amazon in the first place, and was just serendipitous that I'd been following you for a while and I had your books, and then you know, it was like, oh, we can do this. It's an inexpensive way to do some marketing. Let's jump on this. And it was like, bam, we were out of the gate. It was fantastic and remains fantastic, which is why we keep reinvesting.
Well, and every time you come back, you can do a little more because it's a lot. It's like a little bit of a learning curve that first time. And then you were like, wow, I could have done this. I could have done this. Avish, I'd love your thoughts on the Kindle flash sale. You know, what led you to say yes to it, and how it fits in with an overall marketing plan for the book.
Yeah, it was very similar to Luci. You know, as much as so far, I think because the book takes time to generate business on the back end, it's been more the speaking leading to the book. The goal long term is for the book to lead to speaking and training business, which just the more people buy it. So the flash sale, kind of like Luci, inexpensive. I love the idea of cross promoting with others. It was great connecting with other authors and leaving reviews for each other. And I have a big list that I need to get to. I have a collection on my Kindle app of like books to review because there were so many and they all look good. And I'm like, all right, I gotta work my way through that. So, you know, the more people read the book, the better. I mean, that's why, you know, one of the things I did this before this book, but I just bumped my fee a little bit and said automatically, if you book me at my full rate, you get 100 books. And because it's much more important to me to people to have the book in their hands, whether it's for 99 cents in a flash sale or included. So that was my thinking behind the flash sale. And it was really cool. And I think it didn't work as well for me simply because I joined the flash sale like 2 months after my book launch. And I'm like, I think I've tapped out my network from book promotion. So I'm probably going to do it again. But, you know, I'll give it like half a year to kind of breathe before I, you know, start hammering my list again with it.
Well, I've heard from folks that the nice part is that you're not promoting your book hard the whole time. You're sharing a larger list of discounted books.
True.
So it can feel a little different, but you do want to pen pick kind of like that same list of 20 you were talking about to try to get a few more reviews in the weeks leading up to the sale. I know that's been really effective. By the way, I just checked again. Sophie, you're at 91 ratings and 87 written reviews. So this is the next flash sale. Let's see if we can get you 101 written reviews.
Well, actually, I'm putting a different book. I'm putting my new book in the flash
Of course.
sale. So we're going back to zero, right? Back to square one because
new book.
Yeah. So that's the novel.
You know, if you lower your other book at the same time, you might still see a bump in, even if it's not to 99 cents. But if you lower it, I think people, it'll remind them like, oh wait, yeah, that's cool. And you can always list both. I just want to say, just like put them both in there. That's exciting. So we're gonna hear about this new. We're not sure if it's a parable or a fable or a novel.
Yeah. Well, you convinced me the other day that I shouldn't fight the category. So I'm deciding whether it's fable or parable, deep into the definitions there. But the point is, it's the story of the 4 entrepreneurs that are in the beginning of my book, and you know their progress as they apply different strategies that maybe they've encountered.
This is like you read a book and it ends and says like, you know, a year later, and like you get to find out what happened. I think this is cool. Like there's and then this is where they all went off to. This is a really fun little insight. I am so excited for all of you and everything you've created. I'd love for people to stay in touch with you. So Avish, how can people find you and follow your work?
So best place is my website, avishparashar.com. If you are listening and can't write that down, there's not a lot of Avishes in the world, so just type Avish, Avish, into Google, and I'll be one of the first couple results.
Oh, fantastic. Not everyone has that to their benefit. Luci, how about you? How can people find you and follow your work?
You can either reach me at lucimckean.com or at nsrfharmony.com. That's the day job.
Fantastic. We'll get all these links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. Sophie, how about you?
Sophie Lechner on LinkedIn is the best way. And also my website is themagnetmodel.com.
By the way, we're going to also put everyone's LinkedIn. Some of you also have Facebook and Instagram, things like that. Your books, your websites, everything will be in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com, which is also where listeners can find all the other resources for the hundreds of previous episodes that we've had. There's over 500 episodes that we've recorded so far. We have curated directory of experts who will support you wherever you are in your author journey, free virtual networking events, the Kindle flash sales that we've been talking about, all the information you need and much more available at bizbookpubhub.com. Thank you, panel, one more time for joining us.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
Thank you.